Welcome, everyone. As you know, if you're listening, it is Monday, and that means you are back listening to Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking. I'm your host, Crypt Rick. Of course, what have I been thinking about? Lots of different things, and I did promise you guys a great show for tonight, and I meant it. I meant what I said, and I brought together a panel of amazing guests, and we're going to get into a great topic, an important topic, one that I have brought up on this show many times before, and I'm bringing it up again, and we're going to get into this discussion because I see the effects of it going on around me with people I know. And so I wanted to bring on some great guests and just have a big roundtable discussion and see where it goes, because I think there's some great things that can be discussed, learned, and thought about. The least I hope what we're going to be covering today is going to get people thinking and looking into different things. That's my goal. I hope that's what I achieve today. And it's going to be a great show. I'm excited. As you can tell, I'm way more excited than I was last Monday. I was completely trashed from my trip last Monday. I was happy I made it to the show. I haven't missed one yet. I have not missed a show in 3 years. That I'm very proud of, and so I'm glad I made it. But my energy is way high today because this is a round table I've been looking forward to now for like a month. So I'm glad it all got set up and came together. And before I get my guest on here, I like to let you guys know that Revolution Radio listener supported, guys, which means it is your guys' generous donations that keep us here doing our shows every day of the week for you guys. And I love the fact that it is listener supported, because it keeps all the big money and corporations out of here, because once they get a say and start adding money, then they get a say in what is discussed and what can taboo topics. Who knows? They get a say, which we don't want. And I love the fact that any topic here is freely discussed. And I know all the other hosts here that do their great shows, there's so many of them, enjoy that freedom as well. You notice it greatly when you're on a different platform where they have all these rules that you got to follow. And that's when I notice it, when I'm on those platforms. And it's not like that here, which is so powerful. That's why I thank everyone who is donating and who can donate. Please donate if you can. Lots of ways. Just go to revolution.radio. You just go to the donation tab, and there's so many ways you can donate. There's cryptocurrency. There's Bitcoin Cash, and Ethereum. There's direct pay for North America. There is also Patreon if you want to do it a set amount and donate every month. You set amount you want to donate, and then you don't have to worry about it. They take care of it, and you ensure that your donations go every month. And that's a great way to support. Don't forget, you can also put a banner. There's kind of like a banner section at the top of the website if you want to advertise a product that you have a product, you have a book, a podcast, anything it is that you would like to advertise, which I have used for the Funnel Conference 2 years in a row. And I know that people have said that that's how they found it. So I know it works. And it's only $25 a month. And that way you have your banner going 24/7. So I think it's a great deal, guys. So please look into that if that's something you're interested in. You want to promote something. Very cool. And I want to get that out of the way. I don't want to chat too much at the beginning because I have so many guests on. Got a big round table. 4 people are on. So it's going to be interesting, but it's going to be fun. And so I'm looking forward to this. And I hope you guys are as well. I'm going to introduce my first guest, Will Keller. He's been on here a few times. He needs no introduction on my show anyways. How you doing today, Will?
I'm doing great, Rick. Thanks for having me back on. Excited
Absolutely.
For this combo.
It's going to be a great conversation. And you wanted that we have a new guest, somebody that you recommended, and I wanted to get them on here. And you recommended them, and that's all I needed. If you said they were going to make a great guest and they had great stuff to talk about, I'm like, let's get them on. And so that is Byanca Maccabi. I'm looking forward to having her on the show for the first time. And then we're also going to have Amy and John Paul on from Luv-A-Nation? Hold on.
Luv-A-Lution.
Luv-A-Lution. That's it. I always mess. I don't know why I call it the other thing, but yeah, Luv-A-Lution. There we go. I have their website up. I will share that in the chat room for you guys to go check it out. And so we are going to be talking about many things, I'm sure, but conscious parenting is one, and maybe homeschooling and like homesteading, all these different things. I think it's going to be a great topic to get into. Powerful and needed to be discussed. So welcome, Byanca. I want to welcome you on the show as well.
Thank you for having me. I am pretty excited for this talk today.
It's going to be awesome. It is. I'm going to just have to add now Amy and John Paul in. I'm just want to make sure I add them in while we get going here. And and then we can get started on this conversation. It should only take me a second to add them because I kind of lost track of time. And so, one second here. Skype has its moments, as we all know. Byanca and I were talking about that. All right, here we go. Now I can add them. Oh my God, I tell you. Let's get this going here. Oh, wait. Oh, that ain't right. How do I? There we go. All right, we're going to get them. Here we go, Will. We got them. There we go. We're going to get them on here. Then I got everybody on here, and I'm happy. I don't think I've pushed this many guests before.
Yeah, this is very unique. I mean, I've done a lot of conscious parenting interviews and shows, but very few panel discussions, which I think are extremely crucial and exciting.
I do too. That's what I'm excited for. I want to hear everybody's story and suggestions, because I was talking with a friend today and I told him about the topic that we had going on, and we got into it pretty deep, and I was like, I don't know the answers. I don't know. I don't have a child, so I mean, in one way, I don't have a stake in the game, but I do have friends that have children, that's for sure, and I see what's going on in the schooling systems, and so I'm like, that's why I want to get people on here. And so I can learn, my listeners can learn, and we can have this discussion, because I think it needs to be had. And then I was also on a homestead. I wish I would have been at my brother's homestead for better reasons. I had to go out of town last week, as people all know. You've heard the story. But I got to be on a homestead for like 6 days, and as much chaos as was going on around me while I was there, there was some type of peace that was there. I don't know how to describe it yet. I'm still processing it, but this homestead, it was just it was peaceful. I don't know what to say. I don't know how to put it in words, really. It was a feeling, and it was just so relaxing and needed. So it's going to be a great discussion. But before I go ahead and we get this all going, we did get them on. We have Amy and John Paul on from Luv-A-Lution. I got it this time. Welcome to the show. All right. Are you with us?
Can you hear us?
Perfect. Sound great. Welcome.
Welcome. Thanks for having us. What's up, everyone?
Well, we got everybody here. This is so unique. I was saying, John, that this is such a unique panel, and Will was bringing that up too. That having a discussion, a roundtable discussion about these topics, about homeschooling and just all the things that are going into that. And I'm sure it's going to branch off. It may branch off into somewhere else, but that's where I kind of wanted to focus on, and then homesteading, wherever it may go. But
yeah, that's great.
Yeah, this has to happen, these discussions, and I wanted to bring on a panel of people, great people. And so, like, do you want to kick it off, Will? Like, I want to get your thoughts. We've had this discussion on conscious parenting, but like your thoughts, like, where do you want to start this, and then we can add on to this, because I know that you're very passionate about this.
Sure. Yeah, I think a great place to jump it off, and we can get feedback from all the beautiful people here. Why is conscious parenting important? What is conscious parenting? I think, in my personal opinion, it is getting down to the root cause for change on a societal level, on an individual level. It's the most important category that parents and even non-parents need to understand. In my work, I focus on the objective principles of conscious parenting that everyone needs to know. And that's hard for people until I kind of, elaborate and explain that a little bit. But also demystifying parenting as well. So kind of focusing on the importance of the parental arena nowadays, and how this is a main focus for the social engineers, why putting that wedge in the family dynamic is vital to them. And this is how you control a society. This is how you control humanity, is through the family dynamic. You infiltrate the minds, which the home is infiltrated. And that's where the majority of the conditioning and programming takes place in the first few years, due to ignorance, the ignorance of the parents. So it's important to talk about, and it's important to give some insight. So I think that's a good intro.
I think so too. That perfect. Well, thank you so much. And Byanca, do you want to tell a little bit about, let everybody know a little bit about yourself, your story, and then I can move it on to Amy and John Paul, and we can get a little bit of their information, and then we can kind of just get into this discussion.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. So I am a mother of two children. And I guess you would say my conscious parent journey started before I had kids. When I graduated high school, I already knew, I'm like, if I ever have kids, I'm never sending them to public school. I recognized how much the public school system had failed us, had failed me. And so I never wanted to put my kids in school. And I asked my mom to homeschool me when I was younger, but my mom was a single parent of three kids, so she wasn't able to do that. Um, so I had my daughter later in my life. And so I still had the idea that I would homeschool, but I was still kind of lost in the sauce. And I did the whole like medical like system. Like I birthed my daughter in a hospital, gave her all of her most of her vaccines up until almost 18 months. And my daughter had a lot of health issues during this time. And it was around her 18th month appointment that the doctor canceled it. And so, because she had to go on like vacation or something like that.
Hmm.
And then, like, I think like 2 weeks after that is when I guess you would call my awakening, and I started understanding what was going on. And it was like, wow, this was the Most High telling me, like, do not give your daughter, this 18th month shot. Which then I then found out that usually around the 18th month mark is when people develop like autism from shots.
Hmm.
So it was like a huge blessing that, we had stopped it at there. And then from there, I've really started doing a lot of my own research. But when I was coming, like, coming to know what I know now, there wasn't a lot of like information for like conscious parenting. So I've kind of had to figure it all out on my own as I've gone, which has been like a roller coaster of a ride, as well as trying to heal my daughter from, what I allowed in her body up until that point. And
Wow.
then we did live on a homestead for a few years, and I loved it. I loved having my daughter on, a farmland. We had lots and lots of animals. It was kind of chaotic,
Hmm.
but it was really fun. It was a fun experience. And then I had my son, and I had a home birth, which I did. I did a free birth, so I didn't have anybody there but me, and a good friend of mine helped me deliver my son. And it's just been a wild experience, but it's been so rewarding. And I love, being in my children's lives. Like I make them a priority. So I'm a full-time mother. I homeschool my kids. And it's been really fun. And I've just been learning as I've gone. And I've been meeting like really cool people who, talk about conscious parenting. Will was kind of one of the first people that I really came across who had some really good information. And now I am trying to do my best to, provide people um, information that will help them on their conscious parent journey.
That's incredible. What an incredible story, Bianca. Oh my God. Like there's so much I want to ask you just about like your journey is fascinating and how you said you were figuring it out on your own. And the homesteading, I get what you were saying. Like it's chaotic, and that's what I found out too. Like when morning comes at a homestead with a bunch of animals, I learned really quickly that just a busy day from the time that the sun comes up till all the animals are put back. At least where I was, it just seemed to be really, but it was so relaxing and healing. As I was saying at the intro, I don't really quite. I'm still processing it because it was my first experience ever really being in that environment. Where it was just I unplugged from social media and internet. That was my goal. I was like, I'm unplugging for these 5 or 6 days, and I'm just going to focus in on what's going on in myself. And it was so healing and but chaotic, definitely. And being around all these animals, I learned so much skills that people have, I think, forgotten. And just from being around all these different animals and learning for the short time I was there, it was amazing. So I get it. And the home birth too. Wow, I've interviewed a few people that have done this, and so this is gonna be a great discussion. I can't wait to get back. But I just want to get move on to Amy and John Paul. Get your guys maybe a little bit of the story, your backstory, and then what you have going on now, and then we'll get this conversation. We'll just get it free flowing after that.
Yeah. So anyway, nice to see you, Will, Rick, Bianca.
You too.
Thanks for having us. So the Luv-A-Lution is a was started a few years ago. In 2020, we launched it, and just a YouTube channel and a health food supplement product, and just higher conscious levels, truth, love, and freedom for all. That personal Luv-A-Lution, we go on in that journey to work on ourselves, the inner work, balancing ourselves to then bring balance into the world. So yeah, we had our babies. We have a son, 2 boys, and we just had a conscious conception basically from beginning, and then we had the free birth here. My son and I delivered it, and
it was a wonderful experience, much better than the hospital. So this baby came, with daddy and his big brother greeting him, and no lights, bright lights, no, metal tables, nobody probing me. It was so nice to have it in our own home on the side of a mountain. We live off grid.
Yeah, our first son was in a hospital, and we kind of woke up together with David Icke and Passio and Max Egan. And so we were finding out this information. So we had a natural birth in the hospital with no vaccines, got out of there. And then the second one was completely unassisted free birth.
Wow. This comment again, when our first birth, they had a doctor's appointment like 2 days later, and we arrived, and the doctor came in, and she got right to the vaccines. And we said, no, we won't be doing that. And she was pushy. So I said, I researched what these vaccines were for. And I said, we don't want them. She told us to get out of her office. And I started crying. I was horrified.
Wow.
And she said, get out immediately. And I'm like, okay, these aren't visits to help our children. They're to, vaccinate and poison our children. That was an eye opener. That experience.
Yeah, like that's incredible. Like, and see, I've had a few guests on talking about when they're starting to go back to, they had their children at home, and then we got into a great discussion about how unnatural it is to do it in a hospital setting. And I was just thinking, for a woman, that must be, and for the father, it must be so, and for the baby coming into the world like in this shock. You're in this white room, you got lights on you, and you got people all around you. That I just think, like, I just think out, I'm thinking that's so unnatural and not it must be so traumatizing at some level for everyone, especially the child, because way back when, there'd be a birth in the village, and it was a village event kind of thing, and there was surrounded by everybody in the family and loved ones. It was a big thing. It was a big deal, and it was like so different than what it is now. And now people are starting to go back to that, which fascinates me, because I think that's so important. And so that's amazing. I mean, Will, these are the round tables that need to happen, my friend, what we're talking about right now.
Oh, absolutely. It warms my heart listening to these stories.
Me too.
And my kind of higher awareness journey started when my daughter's mother was pregnant, and I call it divine intervention. We stumbled across this midwife, and really connecting with her and trusting her. And our daughter was born in a hospital, but the midwife had it was like a separate room, so it was low lighting. The midwife controlled everything as far as on the hospital side. No nurses come in. She told us, don't let anyone take your baby. I caught my daughter, and right to her mother. So it was really a full natural birth, right? No drugs or anything like that. No vaccines. So it was a really eye-opening experience, mainly for myself, but for my daughter's mother, to see that empowerment in that natural, divine event. I mean, we're talking about birth. This is a magical process, and this type of information, this type of conversations, really is great all around, mothers and fathers. primarily, if we're talking about birth, for women to understand their power and the experience that, due to ignorance, they're kind of robbing themselves of.
Agreed.
So really, whether it's in your home or in a hospital, you have the control for that experience. And, you know, of course, education, this whole, the harm and the trauma starts in the mind, even before birth. But absolutely, at the time of birth, that's where the trauma goes. And yeah, so it's great hearing these type of stories. I love it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So, okay. I just have a co-host here with me. So I'm listening to what you guys are saying, and he wrote down a question I'm going to get to eventually. Yeah, it's a good question because he's kind of listening in, and he was the gentleman I was having a discussion with before we went live, about this topic. And so he's a father himself, and so I'm definitely getting him to write down questions as we get going here, because I'm like, this is the time to ask them. But I hear what you're saying, Will, and that's the thing I learned. Very like interviewing mothers and fathers, you know, and who have done this, and then I learned how unnatural it is in the hospital, and how they sever the connection between the baby and the mother. Like, it's kind of like they, as you said, they do it before even the birth happens, but it's shocking all the things they do to the baby as soon as the baby's born. And I mean, and I know we've got into this discussion in depth, and it's really shocking. I don't think people realize all the things that they do to the baby and what's going on. And then, like Byanca was saying, they want to vaccinate them right away, and it's like, it's craziness when you start looking into it, like what they're doing and the severing that they're doing, which is so important. I think it's probably the most important time. And then what's the first thing the baby's going to remember is some traumatizing event that I've had people argue with me to learn, you know, that the baby doesn't remember, they're too young, they don't understand what's going on. And we got into circumcision, how that it definitely affects them, even if they don't necessarily remember it. There's some trauma going on with everything that they're doing, and it makes, I think at some level, makes the child not trust the parent. And like, there's a lot going on here. I know I'm going on kind of a big rabbit hole, but the vaccine thing is really concerning. And Byanca, you were saying that, you know, that's what you realized really quickly, that's what the agenda was, which is shocking.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. Like, if people really stop and take the time to, you know, really assess what's going on, I think people could really understand it. Like, I kind of knew what was going on in the school system, even being at a young age, but in the hospital and with doctors, they're very pushy with like medical intervention, like I said, my daughter has a lot of allergies now. It's actually gotten really bad this year. So that's been kind of stressful, but that's besides the point.
Right.
But you know, I had my son, and he was free birth. He hasn't had any vaccines and stuff, and I don't nearly have none of the issues I've had with my daughter. And I really advise anybody who is thinking about having children to really sit down with yourself and, you know, really think about if all these interventions are really necessary, and to think of like, and really look at the consequences and the stories that people have with, you know, being injured with vaccines, because it's very hard, it's very stressful for the individual, for the children. So I highly recommend people really look into this stuff. Like, for me, conscious parenting starts before conception. It all starts about the awareness of the individuals who are coming together to conceive a child.
Oh, wow. Right. Okay. Yeah. This is such an important discussion, and I hope I'm going to do it justice, and we all are, because it's a big topic. I know we're going to be covering a lot of ground here in just 2 hours. That's the thing. Usually I wish I had 3 hours or four. By the time the second hour is up, I'm just like, oh, we need another hour to get into it. But that's what part twos are for. So I think this is a great starting point. And I definitely want to get into the homeschooling aspect of it, because that's the one that I'm focusing on. I talk to a lot of parents, and I know I can bring up some of the arguments I get from them, and I think that it's going to be kind of cool to address that, because I'm trying to take this and put it in the real world. And what I mean by that is that I get that they're usually both parents are out of the house and they're both working and some of them are barely making ends meet. And then you say, okay, well, maybe you should be thinking of homeschooling your child. And then they lose their mind usually on me and say, like, how is that even going to be possible? If one of us has to stay home and raise the child, then that's going to cut our income in half. And there's a lot going on. So these are the things I want to address. But I just wanted to, do you guys want to add anything, Amy or John Paul, on the whole vaccine thing and what they're doing? And I mean, maybe you can steer parents away from staying away from this, because I mean, I know I was part of the medical system, definitely. And I think I do trace back a lot of the conditions, especially the condition I'm dealing with now. I do think vaccines had their role in it for sure,
Yeah.
because it was when I got this experimental allergy vaccine. I didn't know it at the time. The doctor didn't call it a vaccine. He was saying it was a treatment. And then I did some research in my later years and found out it definitely was this allergy vaccine. And within a year of me doing this treatment, I got my condition, I got all these health problems. And so there's something going on there.
Yeah. Yeah. I like to say, I mean, there's no safe vaccine. That's propaganda saying vaccines are safe and effective, and you don't put poison into a healthy person, right? You
Makes
don't make
sense.
a healthy person sick. And so I started researching 2017 when I was pregnant with my son, and I was horrified. I had tissues, I was crying, I was listening to thousands of parents all over the world talk about all these things that were happening to their children. It's called Vaxxed. I watched a few movies, and on our website is Luv-A-Lution.net. There's a couple tabs there, and there's a tab that's called Are You Aware? And there's all these videos you can educate yourself about all these situations that people have been going through. And I was cleaning a house for a pediatrician, and he said, do you not vaccinate because you don't have enough money? I'll bring up vaccines. He was in Boston. We were in New Hampshire. And he said, I'll bring them up and I'll vaccinate your son. And I just told him, I said, it's not the money, it's the vaccines. And I told him all the things that were in them, and he couldn't believe it. And he told me to send him documentation, and I sent him emails. And then he saw my son on a hike, and I could just tell in his face, he was like, wow, that kid looks so alert, and he's never been vaccinated, never had an ear infection. So that's my experience.
Yeah, the vaccines are one of the biggest frauds in medical history. You there's no health whatsoever in them at all. And they know it all starts within our bodies. And that's, unfortunately, COVID was a big test.
Oh, for sure. I agree.
And basically testing humanity, their awareness. If you passed the test, you didn't get the jab. And if you failed the test, you got one or multiple,
No, I agree. Yeah, that's the thing. It's like I was just saying, I learned that, like, that's when I had some health issues, but I was getting, like I said, back in my day, I'm kind of dating myself, but 50 years ago, that was kind of the standard thing, was you vaccinated for not nearly as many as they're getting now, which is even more disturbing, but I was still getting them. And then this supposedly allergy treatment, which they didn't, like I said, they didn't call it a vaccine, not to me anyways. And I don't think to my parents. It was just this treatment, and now I know that's what it was. And my body went crazy. Like, and I trace it back to that. I'm like, it can't be anything other than that, because I was pretty healthy. I didn't have the condition I have now. And then I get in this experimental treatment for my allergies. My allergies, they went away, but I paid a dear price for some sniffles. So yeah, it's crazy. That what they were
Sorry to hear that, brother.
Yeah, I know. It's just, but I warn people now, like, really watch what they're putting in you. And I think COVID was a big eye opener for me, and I was kind of upset how many people went along with it and were so eager to get this experimental shot. But anyways, that's a whole different show. But I get what you guys are saying. And so, but what I want to ask, I would like to get into the homeschooling and the conscious parenting, Will, and my co-host here that's listening in had a question, and maybe somebody here on the panel can answer. Do you have to, do you still need to be vaccinated to even go to school? Like, he's asking if you can get away with not vaccinating your child and having them in the school system. I have no idea.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
Yeah, most are mandatory if you go to school and play sports. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's not good. So there's your answer. So yeah, if you want
Yep. That's correct. It differs state by state. but like I'm in California, and yes, you gotta show proof of genetic modification and sports and stuff like that as well. That's actually when I was 18, I was going to junior college just to run track and field, and I got a vaccination, and within weeks, I had psoriasis, an
Wow.
autoimmune thing. So, which I since then, fast forward, I've controlled just through diet and stuff like that and healed myself. So yeah, so sports, absolutely. Those are requirements as well.
Wow. So yeah, they really make sure that you're getting it to get it. That's what I figured the answer was, but I figured I better ask because it's a serious question. So that's good to know. And it's what a coincidence, so Will, that you get it and then you get psoriasis. Just it's a coincidence, of course.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a coincidence, not a coincidence, but I did recognize that pattern, and that was from there. I mean, I come from how I was raised. We did not go to hospitals unless you couldn't stop the bleeding. So there was already a distrust, but I sold myself on that because I needed to get that to run track and field. So I made that choice, but still in my ignorance, making that choice, not having that knowledge, I made it. But I quickly made the connection like, whoa, I just got this a couple weeks ago. Now I'm having these issues. Without knowing the whole history of vaccines and all that and all the traumatic information, and to expand on that, it's not just school and sports. There's travel, and just think about pets, right? I mean, how many vaccinations people's pets go through? Like if your dog goes even to a veterinarian, a lot of times they won't even see the dog unless it has its shots.
Exactly.
Current.
That's so messed
that's
up.
a whole realm of experimentation. And, as far as dogs, it's 1 out of 2 dogs are going to get cancer, right? It's actually, I think it's higher than that. I think it's like 65-70% of dogs are going to get cancer. So it's just these things that I think people don't, especially parents, don't think about due to programming and conditioning. And unfortunately, it takes some type of traumatic experience for people to kind of wake up.
It did for me. So I get it.
Sure.
Yeah, I get like I said, I traced it back, and that's the only thing that makes sense is that I was relatively healthy, and then I got this allergy experiment, and it was an experiment back in my day. Like they were just starting to roll this out. And unfortunately with my condition, I kind of trusted doctors for the longest time. I was raised that way. That doctor knew best, and you went to the doctor and he actually cared about you and all of this stuff. And then how quickly I learned that's not true, but I paid a price because I was part of more than just one experimental medicine in my journey till I got into my early 20s. And then that's when I started to realize, like, okay, this is not, they're selling us a lie is what they're selling us, and never addressing the cause. Like in so many of these topics we're probably going to get into, never getting into the cause, always cutting at the symptom. And that's what they do. At least that's what they do here. And it's getting worse. Our medical system here is horrible, by the way. I just want to make that out. In Canada here, it's horrible. Yes, we have free health care, but watch what you say because it's free, and that comes with all the problems with it. So yeah, but just to kind of change, I don't want to stay just on vaccines, and I want to kind of bring this into, like I was saying, the homeschooling, because I got into the discussion today, and with somebody who I was talking about homeschooling, and like I said, I've talked to a few people about this who have children, and I start getting heat usually right away when I bring it up. Like, is this something they would consider? And that's so. Is there anyone of you that want to tackle this at first? Because I'll tell you what I run into the most when I say homeschooling. It's kind of what I said just a few minutes ago. You have two parents that are out working. How are they going to ever make ends meet and have a child at home? And how are they going to raise a child and teach them everything that the school could teach them? I know it's a big thing. Who wants to tackle this?
Yeah,
Perfect.
sacrifice is the main thing.
We've made a lot of sacrifices. Yep.
Makes sense.
They're worth it for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Homeschool is, teaching the school curriculum at home, where unschooling is going with the child's what he wants to do, or they're what they're excited about that day. If they're into frogs, we learn about frogs that day, or we're learning about grasshoppers, or what kind of following the child's interests.
Right.
And instead of the school curriculum, and then you got to check in with this person all the time and Facebook him what he's doing or she's doing and keeping up to date. So
Mhm.
the homeschool is there's many variations, obviously, but it's way better than going to school. And the schools are not safe. One, and there's bullying, which is so horrible. The cyberbullying and the video games that everyone wants to that plays all the time, and it's all because that non-parenting, the lack of the convenient parenting, really.
Mhm.
So that's why it's so important, this topic, that um, it's full circle, the effects of the convenient parents. Now we see it everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing too, is like I like that you said that there's going to be sacrifices have to be made, and that is something I think a lot of parents don't want to hear. A lot of people in general don't want to hear when it comes to having to maybe do the right thing or get on the right path or choose to make the right decision. There might be some sacrifices that have to be made, and that was kind of what I replied back to them. Actually, it was great that you brought that up because that's what I said, and I also like John Paul, what you said. That you teach what the child is interested in, and that was kind of where my whole this afternoon when I was talking with my friend, that's where it went. As I said, sacrifices have to be made. And the way I replied, it ties into what you just said, is I learned my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and I learned more from my mother dragging me around the woods, bringing me to museums, all of these different things, and than I ever did in a classroom. Those the things I remember and I resort to are those things that I learned from my mother, and it was hands-on, one-on-one, and it was just like you said. If I wanted to learn about birds that day, we would learn about birds. If I was interested, I wanted to paint a picture the next day, we went and painted a picture. It was so random and it was so
That's
fun.
great. Yeah,
And that's
good
how
for
I
you.
learned. I love that. And then I go and then I went and then I go to school and I'd be like, this is so unnatural way to learn. I hated it. I was like, I'm in rows, I'm learning, I'm trying to cram in a lesson every hour, every 2 hours, a different lesson. I'm like, and I didn't learn that way as well as I did at home. So I love that you brought that up. Bianca, I want to get your like homeschooling. What is your like? What do you say to parents that say that they can't do it? It's just they could both have to be out of the house working, and I mean that I like to get your thoughts on that.
So it's so funny because when you brought up the homeschooling, the first word that came to my mind was sacrifice. And so I am a single parent. I am the primary caregiver to both of my children. And I have managed to be a stay at home mom for the last 7 years.
Amazing.
And it required me to sacrifice. Like, I mean, I've had to live very modestly. I don't know if that's the right word, but like I withdrew myself from working because yeah, that's yours. I withdrew myself out of the work field because I didn't want anybody else raising my children but me. And so something that kind of stuck in my mind was when I would listen to Mark Passio and he would talk about how he kind of quit his like really well-paying job to put the truth out there. And he said,
Hmm.
the universe always took care of him. And I vouch for that. Like if you put your heart and your soul into it and you put your children first, life will make a way for you to be able to homeschool your children if you really want to. But it may require you to sacrifice some of your comfort, some of the things that you're used to. And that's something that I've learned to do. And it's worth it in the end. And I went to school. MySpace was a thing back in my childhood, and they had a hate page of all the people in my grade, and where they like talked and dissed all the people in like my grade, and it was horrible. Like, how horrific is it that our peers, our kids that are our age, are talking about each other in a public forum like this? And
Hmm.
so bullying is huge when it comes into the school system, and they're not really doing anything to fight against it. And so that was something like I really couldn't support. So like that and the increased amount of sexual abuse that happens between the students and the teachers, like all around, it was a no-go for school for me.
Right. Yeah, that I hear you. And it's just amazing. It's so amazing how what we're talking about is lining up with people I've talked about and the points that you're making, Bianca, because my cousin was just talking about how her son is in public school and he's getting bullied really bad, like to the point where he doesn't even want to go. And she's went to the teachers and to, the regular course. You go to the teachers, the principals, they don't do anything. And it's really upsetting when I actually sat down at this homestead and talked to the child and what they go through, and they're traumatized. It's like, and I remember getting bullied in public school, but I always knew that I could go back home and I had that sanctuary. There wasn't the internet, not like it is. We didn't have internet like this. We didn't have like the page you're speaking about, where people can make websites about you or go online and just make pages about you and trash you. I mean, we didn't have that. So I kind of had the sanctuary of my home. At least I got away from the bullying for a while, but now I can't even imagine what children are going through with the bullying online. So that's another show right there. But yeah, great points. Like, this is so powerful. And Will, what are your thoughts, like, when you hear parents say, like, well, what are your thoughts on when you hear sacrifices have to be made? Because we both know that's not what people want to hear. They don't want to sacrifice their comfort. What are you talking about, Will?
Yeah, I think sacrifice is a natural attribute in this reality. Everyone sacrifices something when it comes to whatever part of your life. So when someone says that they don't want to sacrifice, what they're really saying is that they don't care to do X, Y, or Z, but yet they can, do other things. Now, I will say this after that statement. I'm in a co-parenting situation, and this is the norm nowadays.
Right.
So what it comes down to is there is a quantitative and a qualitative aspect to parenting, meaning you have to log in enough hours, enough quality time with your children, because it's all about relationship. It's all about the relationship that you have with your children. And that's the problem, is that when people are putting their kids in public school, they're abdicating all of that time. And hey, in a co-parenting situation, sometimes your kid's going to be in public school, but that still does not negate the time that you have with your child and what is the condition of that relationship. An ideal situation, absolutely get them out of that indoctrination camp. But every family is going to be different. And I try to put an emphasis on that because of the co-parenting situation. I'm in a fortunate situation where my daughter's mother and I, agree on principles. So it's easier to work around that kind of stuff. And we agree on a lot of topics like education. But that might not be the case for a lot of people. So what's the answer? Absolutely, is that there's going to be sacrifice, and there's going to be the initiative for you to step into that teacher role, not only with your children, but with the co-parent as well, to try to educate them. And sometimes you have to swallow pride. You have to set aside the petty differences, because any type of the relationship you have with the co-parent directly affects the children as well. So it breaks my heart that I see so many parents at war with each other in the co-parenting dynamic. This is exactly what the state and the social engineers want. They know when parents are at war, they're inadvertently at war with their children as well.
I would agree. Yeah, I agree. You can see that they're destroying the family. I've been actually doing a lot of shows on that lately, because I'm seeing it in real time. That's the thing. Like, you're seeing this destruction of the family, and I love the fact that you're bringing up quality time, and it's important. Will, I'm glad you brought that up with the co-parenting and how different every family is. That's the truth of the matter, and that's why I was saying I don't know the answers. I know it's a huge problem. I don't necessarily know how to fix it, but I think talking about it and having people listen in is maybe going to get them thinking, because I just know that we can't keep going the way that we're going, the way it's all going. And the schooling system is one horrible aspect of it, for all the reasons that the guest brought up. And so it's important these discussions happen. And that's the problem. I see the problem is so big, and I'm just being really realistic. I'm just being honest. I look at it and I'm like, how do we even put a dent in this? It's so big. And then maybe we can get down in the second hour. I think a lot of it is people have to start educating themselves and learning about, like you were saying, Will, principles and morality and things. There's a lot that has to go on. And then once the adults learn this, they pass it on to their children. And then I can see this is where the change is really going to start manifesting. But it's just getting this all in line and working.
Well, children are not getting an education in the government ran indoctrination camps. 100%, they're not getting an education. What they're getting is indoctrination, and that means speak into. They are being molded. Because here's the facts for parents. You only have maybe 10 years with your children before their autonomy increases from age, and they're off and running and becoming their own individual person. And if you resist that, then you are going to be met with they're going to resist that, right? Because now you're in the controlling and the enslavement category where you're trying to control your child, and trying to do that with a preteen and a teenager. You're going to be met with resistance because this is how nature works. No one likes to be controlled or enslaved. So you really have the formative years, which are the most important, right? 0 through 7, where the one thing that matters is creativity. That's all that matters. This is why self-directed learning is teaching your child how to fall in love with learning. It is the stage of active imagination, and this is what needs to be promoted. 100%. This is why the ideal case is self-directed education for sure.
I agree.
And they don't get that in public schooling. It's actually the inverse of that. That indoctrination is dimming that, it's silencing that imagination. And this is why we see, so many kids, young adults that don't know what they want to do with their lives. They think they just need to hop on the hamster wheel. And I think the younger generations are kind of recognizing that they just the lack of knowledge and awareness is missing. So they know that this isn't working anymore. They know that college is a scam. They don't want to do that, but they don't know the why. And if you don't know the why, then you do not have knowledge.
Great points. And you're right. I've talked to a few people like in their in their late teens, early 20s, and you're right. People are starting, even some of the adults I talked to are starting to really realize that this doesn't work. But they're stuck, like you said. They don't have an answer. They know, they kind of got, I don't know how you can't know that it's all messed up right now by just, if you're somewhat observant and you're paying any form of attention, you're going to see that things are messed up. But you're right. People I talk to, they know, they're getting it. Some don't get it, but I'm talking to more and more that are like, this can't go on. There's a problem. And so this is why these discussions have to happen. Do you want to add anything in, Amy, John Paul? I'm thinking of your children with living on a homestead. I can imagine the education they're getting. I would take what you're doing over the schooling system any day.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we learn new skills every day. We're always learning.
We don't really have animals, but we grow our food.
Amazing.
We have 2 cats, but yeah, the school system totally separates the child from their soul, basically, and then creates how we all react to authority in the same way. And just I hated it.
Life's beautiful. I remember in school, I couldn't wait till the day got over. I couldn't wait to be an adult. Kids shouldn't have to want to be grown up already. They're kids. Allow your kids to be themselves.
I agree.
And also how to think. Schools teach them what to think. They don't teach them how to think and to critical think and to ask questions. They tell them to raise their hands or sign out, or, you have to ask to do things.
And
truth comes from authority, the teacher, and sit down, be quiet. We know. And the bullying isn't addressed because basically the state is the biggest bully there is. So they're not going to call little bullying out in the microcosm. where they're doing it on a macrocosm. And yeah, the bullying, I mean, government's the biggest bully there is. So
I agree. I could have said it better. And you're right. They don't do anything. I've talked to, like I was saying, I was talking to my cousin's child, and they're not doing anything about it. It's bad, and I feel so bad for the child
yeah,
because they're scared to go to school. Like they don't want to go. And I remember when I was younger and getting bullied, I didn't want to go to school either. I mean, why do I want to go and subject myself to this for 6 hours a day every day?
Yeah.
And they never did anything. We'll talk to the principal, we'll talk to your parents, and then nothing ever, if anything, it got worse.
yeah,
The more you talked and tried to talk about it with people. So and we didn't have social media either. That's such a big topic too, how it's even worse on there. But yeah, I'm just checking. I got to keep an eye on the time because I'm enjoying this conversation. So we still got like 5 minutes before break, which is awesome. Um, but yeah, what a great, I mean, yeah, you may not have animals, but growing food, I would love to get into homesteading a little bit in the second hour, um, as well as other things. Whatever you guys want to talk about or think's
yeah.
important, please bring it up. But
Yeah, we're actually working on our own school, morality school,
wow,
teaching kids, natural laws and the trivium and
Nature.
survival, real things that we can use to be independent beings out here. And
that's incredible.
Teach them how
That's
to
That is
make their own
awesome.
bread. Make their own
yeah, we're gonna
breads.
raise money and just have it for kids and adults, and because we do birding tours and everything. So we really are love speaking the truth, learning, and just love sharing with people that are open-minded, like-minded, perceptually, and yeah, this is a great conversation with you guys.
Thank you
um,
guys for having us. Love
You're
you
very
all.
welcome. I'm so thankful that you're here. All of you are here. This is amazing, and it's great to hear that you're doing teaching like that. That is, to me, those are real lessons, and especially that you're going to be talking about natural law and morality and
Yeah, the
principles, all these
things.
things.
Yeah,
Wow.
they're the stuff that's important. Knowing thyself and loving thyself, and screw what anyone thinks about you, says about you,
Yep.
and being your own unique creative self. That
Yep.
self-directed learning, like Will said, and just there's no walls. Nature is the classroom, really.
I say that all the time.
Yeah, because the
I'm like,
learning doesn't take place under those fluorescent lights in the four walls. That's no.
yeah, I agree. It's so cool that you're saying that, and you're right. It doesn't. That's why I've always looked at nature as the classroom. I'm like, this is what I learned. Like I learned so much from, and it's amazing, and it's great that you guys are doing that. I can't wait to talk a bit more about that. And I just want to say to people listening. So you may say, how can this be done? Well, we're speaking to people that are doing it. So I mean, sacrifice has to be made as we broke down. But Byanca, what do you think? I mean, I just want to kind of keep an eye on the time. We got about 2 minutes. Like, what are you thinking about the conversation and what Amy and John Paul are doing? I think that's incredible.
I love it.
Me too.
That's awesome. I'm actually in the process of building my own curriculum that's kind of going to be more child led and like adjustable for the individuals. But I'm adding in like, how to, make your own food from scratch and morality and natural law, a lot of personal development and healing and all of that stuff like that. So I 100% support you guys.
Good for you. Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
so, yeah, this is a great conversation. I really wish I had this kind of information when I was starting off my journey. So, thank you for having us all on here.
You're very welcome. I'm looking
Yeah.
forward to hour two, and yeah, this is the stuff that I is so cool. And I want people to hear. That's what I was hoping I could bring to people I could bring examples of people that are doing it. Like because you keep hearing like, how are you going to do it, and how do I bring a classroom into the house? And I keep trying to tell people like I don't think people mean bring the classroom home. You have to change the whole process and make the classroom outside and other things and get away from that rigid curriculum. And so I'm glad that we're talking about people that have actually we're talking to you that have done this. And then Byanca, you're saying that you're trying to work on something to even teach other people. Like this is what to me it's all about is
Awesome.
moving it forward and learning about this and teaching because I mean they're not teaching natural law and all the principles and objective morality and stuff in schools. That's for sure. And that's where we're going to see the change, I think, is and when they do start hearing about this. And so what do you think, Will? We got 1 minute before break. Actually, we got like 30 seconds. Say something, Will. I want you to get the last word.
I'll say something real quick. There was a study in the 1960s by George Land, and it showed that young children, they did it from ages, I think it was 1 all the way up to adults, and they found that children are creative geniuses, and that dramatically dropped if they were in public school, to the point where adults, the creative level was extremely low, and from 16 on is when it dropped really hard.
There you go, guys. Think about that. Please stick around. I have an amazing panel here. We'll be back in like 4 or 5 minutes. Hour 2 coming up. Welcome back, everybody. We are already rolling into hour 2. The first hour flew by, and I know this is a lot to talk about in just a couple hours. We're hitting on a lot of things, but it's an important conversation, and I'm so honored to have all my guests here. I told you guys I was setting up a round table that was going to be powerful, and I meant it. And I'm going to be doing more of these round tables because this is where I thrive and I enjoy the conversation because it can go anywhere. And I think any topic should be open to discussion, and where it wants to go, it goes. And I'm glad that we have some amazing people on here. I'm so honored that you guys are all here and taking the time to come and speak with me and to my listeners, because this is an important topic. And Will, you made a great point at the end. And I was like, we've talked about this before, that's what they stomp out in children, it seems, at a very young age, is creativity. They really go at it. And so you made a great point at the end. I kind of rushed you on it. So if you want to kind of touch on that again, because we were kind of in the break music, and I have a feeling it's going to be broken up. So maybe if you want to touch on that to kick it off, and then get into mental health and stuff like that. I got some ideas for this too.
Yeah, so the George Land study in the 60s, it became kind of widely known, or more known, in the 90s as well. But what it showed was that young children before public school were high-level creative geniuses, and that quickly, steadily declines once they get into public school. And then by the time they reach high school, around 15, 16, it's at an extremely low level, and then it plateaus coming out of high school. They also did the study on adults, and the majority of adults that they tested were very low on creativity.
Wow, that's crazy.
So it just shows, and that's what the system does. Like you were saying, it silences that imagination and that creative discovery. And what is creative discovery? That is learning. This is what a human being is. We are a creator being. We use the mind, and then we bring it to life. We manifest it. And that's what we need to do with our children, in that, especially the formative years, promoting that creative discovery, and talking about, the objective principles of parenting. Morality. If a family in the household, what are their values? If they're not talking about objective morality and natural rights, or talking about the trivium method of truth discovery, which is learning how to think, which is critical thinking, and nature, natural law, right? The reality that we live in, and which is also ourselves as well. So it's getting to know ourselves. And for parents, you have to educate yourself first, because the child is a fractal of you.
Right.
So however you are is how the household's going to be, and affected, and the children's going to, be affected by that as well. And this even goes for, people that have grown children. You still have that influence on your kids that are now adults, right? You never stop being a parent. And as far as homeschooling goes, or unschooling, self-directed learning, we have to understand, since the scandemic, homeschooling and unschooling has skyrocketed like tenfold. A lot of people are doing this. So every situation is going to be unique. For instance, my situation, I'm in a co-parenting situation, and my daughter's mother wants to be a teacher. So she is a teacher at a Waldorf charter school. not funded by the state, which is great. It's also called forest schools in California. They are fully self-directed learning. So the 2 weeks my daughter is with her, she goes to this facility. It's all age groups. It's not atomized, which is what, public schooling does. They want to put all kids, segregate them by age, stick them all into one box. So that's nice. And then the 2 weeks she's with me, we live. Every time we do something, we're learning. My daughter asks me a question. Well, Dad, how do we do this? And if I don't know, let's go find out. Bam. Now you've initiated the process of the trivium on how to learn something and use critical thinking. If during the scandemic, when the whole mask BS was going on, my daughter and I took my daughter with me into stores to show her how I interact with someone that's trying to use coercion and violence upon me, right? So showing, just experiencing life, like John Paul said, right? Nature, reality, that is the school. That is the schoolyard. It's not in a building, and it's definitely not atomized to a cookie cutter, one shoe fits all. Some kids like the group dynamic, and that's great. And some kids like the one-on-one dynamic. So knowing your children, the values of your house, and also sacrifice. I mean, I guarantee you there's local groups that have meetups, either homeschooling or unschooling, and you have to curtail your situation. But the values that you uphold and that you have are crucial, because the modern warfare nowadays is culture, the culture war. This is a psychological, it's psychological warfare. And this is what the indoctrination camps do. They mold the minds of children to get them to identify with one side or the other.
That's so true. What you're saying, Will, you're nailing it, man. Like I always tell you that. You always seem to really nail what my thoughts are and what I'm thinking, and some great advice. And it was kind of funny that you brought up the schooling, that your partner, your mother, the mother of your child, is teaching. She's like part of a different type of schooling. And that was kind of cool that you brought that up just when you did, because during the break, my friend and I, who's beside me, he was saying, okay, this is all great, but some parents are maybe not teachers. Like not everybody is a teacher. Some people maybe shouldn't be parents. That's a good argument, but definitely shouldn't be teaching children. So the fact that you brought up that there's schooling, that makes sense. You know what I mean? Like,
let me comment on
schoolings.
That.
Right.
Yeah, let me comment on that.
Perfect.
Every single parent is a teacher. Every single individual on the planet is a teacher, and also needs to be a student as well. If you have a child, your child is watching you, is learning from you nonstop, is seeing how you react to things, is seeing how you deal with certain situations. You are teaching, whether you're conscious of it or unconscious of it. Now,
right.
Using the term teacher in that dynamic where, the classical way where a group of kids come and, you're teaching a lesson or whatever, that's part of the programming of what we think a teacher is. Someone that's in the front of the room, that has authority, is, speaking onto kids. That's not really how teaching works, right? Mm-hmm. In a natural sense, like we're all learning from each other right here. So that's getting true. A group of kids together and they can be all ages. And I see like how she operates. It's getting kids together, and the one group of kids is like, oh, we want to paint. Okay, cool. She facilitates that. Okay, well, let's go get the paints. Let's set it up right here. Oh no, you guys want to do it over by that tree? That's cool. So it's more of a facilitation. And this is what parents can do as well in their day-to-day lives, right? Whether it's feeding the animals, it is stewardship. It's facilitation.
Mm-hmm. No, I get. No, that's really cool the way you said that, because you're right. We're all teachers. We may not have that title, but we're all learning from each other. So in fact, we are teaching, and our children are learning from us. And whether you're a good teacher or not, and the reason I think what my friend was trying to bring up was, like if you want to homeschool and you're a parent, and say your alcoholic or something like that, or you're a drug addict, maybe you should be teaching a child. That might not be the best position to be in. I think that was the point he was trying to make, is like, some people are just unfit for mental health reasons, pick your poison. But I get what you're saying, is that even if you're a bad teacher, even if you're how do I word this? I don't want to say, if you're a bad parent, you're still teaching. So, I mean, this is,
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? Like, I hope maybe you guys can help me out here, what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's kind of monkey see, monkey do. And so we have to be a good example in front of our children,
Right.
right? Because that's what they're recording everything the first 7 years is, and they're downloading all our behaviors, every interaction, every experience, and like Will said, laying the foundation and the fundamentals, right, of knowing right from wrong in those 7 years, knowing thyself, and knowing universal laws. But like I was saying, I'm going to make a point about conscious parenting, and it takes a parent that has done some healing to themselves, first of all, and also being that conscious parent takes full responsibility of that child. Not you can't go halfway, being fully, because that's what a lot of people don't do. They give their child over the state very easily, and don't think they can teach them anything. That's not what, and it's that unwillingness to learn new things and go into the unknown.
Right.
But like Amy made a great observation, animals don't bring their kids to school. They're fully responsible for their children.
Yep.
They protect them no matter what.
And that's protecting. Being a conscious parent is protecting your child mentally from garbage information on TV, foods, emotionally, being there for them, and spiritually being there for them, letting them cry it out, getting out those emotions that we all have.
Great point. Yeah.
So yeah, that's a few things.
It's a tough one.
To
Yeah.
be a conscious parent.
Exactly.
And you have this life, it's a precious life to protect and to educate, and we got to take that.
Hold such high expectations. We hold such high expectations too of our children. We don't see them. We want them to be a certain way, and it's not right.
Right. And that's the thing, is that they're so individual, and they all have their own strengths and talents, and that's the stuff that should be nurtured. I mean, that's the thing. I wish, like, my music, I'm definitely music and artistic. That is what I've been an artist since my mom said I could pick up a crayon. That's what I was. I mean, so trying to make me a mathematician or something like that, like, it just, school didn't work that way for me. It wasn't, I should have been nurturing my music and art. That's
I felt like I didn't start learning till I was out of school.
Yeah.
Like learning about myself and my reality, the reality we share.
Yep.
And then unlearning all the programming.
That's a big one. Yeah. And that's the thing. Because I keep saying that people, I think a lot of people don't even really know who they are anymore. That's the problem too, is that you have people going around, they don't really know who they truly are. They've been so manipulated and mind controlled the older they get, that they're kind of lost touch with who they really are, their true authentic self, which has been kind of beaten out of them and programmed out of them, is the way I see it. And
absolutely,
what are your thoughts, Byanca? I wanted you to weigh in on this too. Like, please join in. If anyone wants to make comments, feel free, man. Like, this is wide open.
So I just want to say that we all need to get away from the idea of public schooling being what we do when we homeschool or unschooling. They're two completely different things. Like, I don't really see myself as, what people traditionally see as a teacher, but I recognize that my kids are always watching me. They're always learning with me. And so schooling and teaching looks different for everyone, every child, and every parent. It is about finding what works best for you and your children. and going with that, and then experimenting and adjusting as needed. It doesn't have to look one way. It can look one way for the first year, and then the next year it can look completely different. So people need to be more flexible when it comes to teaching our children at home. I think a lot of like homeschooling comes with a process of unlearning and relearning. And I mean, even as far as I am on my journey, I'm still unlearning a whole bunch of things and having to reteach myself and showing my children that, like, hey, like, I don't have it all figured out, but I allow myself to be open for new information so that I can adjust with the situation. And I think
Wow.
that's very important for parents to show their children. Like, we can't teach our children that we're like these perfect beings, because then they're going to strive for an unrealistic version of perfectionism. We need to show them that it's okay to stumble through life until you find what works for you. So
Good
that's kind
point.
of really like all
Mm.
I want to say. There's also a lot of different options out there to help supplement home education. It just requires you to take the time and the care to really look into it. And again, see what works for you and your children. If it doesn't work, then there are plenty of other options to try out there.
That's a great point. That's such great advice, Bianca. Thank you, because and you guys are all bringing up great points, because that's the one thing, as I was saying, that I hear from parents is that they can't. There's no way to make it work, and I never believe that. I mean, if you really want, you like you guys were saying, sacrifices might have to be made, and do you care enough about your child to make the changes? And like, and as I was saying, like, some parents maybe not be feel comfortable just being a primary teacher, but like what Will was saying, and so was John Paul, there's other things, there's other people doing homeschool and teaching. I know a few people now that are bringing children to their farms and educating them about growing food and animals and all the things that go on in a farm, and that's kind of their classroom. And from what they're telling me, the kids are thriving. They look forward to that part of the day where they're going to these farms and learning. I know another group that's teaching them about beekeeping, so they're learning all about bees and how important bees are. And the kids love this. Their minds are so attracted to it. So
Great.
there's ways
Yeah.
around this, and I mean that's probably a good. I want to get into that a little bit about healthy. And I just wrote down healthy mind, healthy body, because I mean I mean this is so important. Is what they're doing to our food, how nutritious it is, how it's getting worse, and that's kind of like I'd like to dive into that a little bit, because I think if our minds aren't healthy and our bodies aren't healthy, then we got more problems even than what we're discussing. So do you want to touch on that, Will? Like, I'd like to get your thoughts on a healthy mind. Like, this is the problem. Like, and then about our bodies too. Like, we're getting into big topics here.
Yeah, no, for sure. This is fantastic. This chat is great. And I do want to put the emphasis on, because I get a lot of emails and messages from parents, and the hardest part for them is the unlearning process. A lot of parents still have that programming that, oh, my kid needs to read by this age. My kid needs to be at this level by this age. Like, that is the programming. Like, my daughter taught herself how to swim at 3 years old because she wanted to learn how to swim. She loves math. I hate math.
Me too.
Right. But my point being is that when a human is internally motivated, they can accomplish whatever they want to do, but that internal motivation has to be there. So if your kid's not reading by a certain age, no problem. My daughter picked up reading on her own fairly easy, and then she kind of stopped and wasn't interested until she got into comics. Now she's totally advanced at reading because she loves reading comics. So we need to analyze ourselves and what we think, our own mental definition of certain things, what we want our children to be versus where they are at a certain stage, right? Conscious parenting, it's the art of balance. It's about being and doing. So it's present moment awareness. And that is going to be different for every kid and every family, right?
Great
So
point. Yeah.
understanding your child and educating yourself and meeting your child where they're at and entering into their world, right? And taking them into your world. So there's this, you're on the same level and you're interacting and you're showing your child the art of living.
Right. Great point.
And yeah, as far as diet, absolutely. This goes hand in hand. This is what conscious parenting is about. To be conscious means you have awareness. You are recognizing the patterns in yourself and in environment. So, you know, you're definitely unconscious if you don't understand all the poisonous artificial food that is out there, the chemical warfare that is going on. This is something that a parent needs to educate themselves on.
Yeah, for sure.
And of course, you know, the body, mind, soul, it's all one thing, right? So they
Yeah.
all need to be attuned to, and that attention and care needs to be on all those levels. And I'll tell you what, a parent that has care and love for themselves is also going to care and love for their child, meaning that if I'm eating crap food, my kid's going to be eating crap food. But if I have that self-love and self-respect to put good, wholesome food into my body, then that's also going to be done to my child as well.
That makes so much logical sense, Will.
Meaning
it just does.
You're not going to see a parent eating fast food, but also getting, you know, organic veggies and serving healthy food to their child.
It makes
right?
sense. Yeah. And that's the thing. Like parents have to educate themselves and get this figured out, and then it passes on to their children. So there's work to be done for everybody, kind of thing, right? Like that's the way I see it. Is that you have parents that need to work on themselves, and then it gets passed on to their kids, and their kids are observing this. There's a lot going on, and that's the truth. Like I think that's maybe a reason why mental health is at such a big rise and everything like that. I think there's so many factors that are going into what we're talking about. It's hard in 2 hours to kind of break it all apart and examine it. And so I'm trying to do like a broad overview, and then hopefully it's going to spark people to kind of look into what we're talking about. But I know that health is a big one of them. And if your mind's unhealthy, it's only logical that your body's going to follow. And that's what I just see. Like, and I'm glad that we have John Paul and Amy here and talking, because I'm trying to grow healthy food. I don't have a homestead. That's my brother's area, but I do have a gardens, and I'm learning the hard way how to grow my own food, trial and error. And I think that's so important. If you guys want to talk about that, because that's what you guys, Luv-A-Lution is about. If the website, I put it in the chat for everybody. Please go check it out. And
thank you.
Yeah, it's so important.
We didn't grow up gardening. Neither of us. So this was all new when we got here about 3 years ago, and we just started growing food and trying it out, and it's cumulative. So you learn something new every year.
Yep.
And some plants like this, some plants don't, and so it's really just trial and error. And we all learn something every day, and it doesn't end when school, high school ends or college ends. I mean, learning is something everybody should be doing every day. And we can learn from the youth, we can learn from the elders, we can learn from everybody.
Yep.
And they said I remember hearing from some teacher or some gentleman, he said 99% of education is encouragement. Just encourage, your children, and they can learn whatever they want to learn, and accomplish whatever they want to accomplish. Just encourage them along the way.
That's great advice. Yeah.
You don't control them, but to support them and nurture them, kind of like a garden. You got to nurture the soil and your children in that same way, and be there for them.
Makes great sense. Yeah.
We rake this. John Paul is raking seaweed out here. We're in Maine, the farthest eastern Maine you can go, near Eastport. And
by Canada too, though.
And we put it all over the garden. The vegetables love the seaweed. And we also have a supplement, and we've all been taking it. I took it when I was pregnant. So seaweed is amazing.
Yeah, health is wealth. We say love yourself to health.
Yep.
And
Talk to yourself, encourage yourself,
and let thy food be thy medicine, and thy medicine be thy food. I think so. I don't know. Some Greek philosopher said that one, but
and speak to yourself with compassion. We
Yeah.
tend to really speak negative to ourselves, and if we can undo those patterns, and keep telling yourself you're enough, you'll see amazing changes in
That's
your
so
life.
true.
You know.
I've said that so many times. Like nobody can say stuff to me that would hurt me more than what I say to myself. I used to say to
Yes.
myself. I mean,
Yep.
you could say whatever you want to me, and I'd be like, dude, I can rip myself apart way better than you can. And
Yep.
I did it for years and years, and that's such great advice to love yourself and talk kindly to yourself, and give yourself a break once in a while. Like
yeah,
Yep.
like God, like people,
absolutely.
that's the problem. And but yeah, I'm looking at your product here and that the superfood and stuff like that. And this is an area that I'm really interested in is health, like nutrition, because I kind of grew up. I was and I look I was just saying recently to someone that I really miss my mom's cooking. Like it was something I took for granted growing up. I had always a home cooked meal. Nothing was really ever bought. And my mom grew her own vegetables, and then we basically really ate healthy.
That's
And
awesome. Man.
I didn't appreciate it when I was a teenager. Now I miss it. So I want to learn more, and then I got a house, and then started growing my own vegetables and figuring this all out because I realized how important nutrition is, especially for your mind.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, and
it's really
you don't need a big space to grow
you
food.
don't
Just a little patch of sun. 10 by a couple feet, 10 feet,
Pack it in.
and you can put so much in such a little space.
Yep.
With the proper care.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Like even the grow bags that you can hang. Like I have
Yeah,
bags that you can grow on, like hang on the side of a building or a window, or I mean, it's amazing what you can grow if you just put some thought into it and figure it out. Um,
Nice.
no,
you
you're right.
know, there's
Absolutely. We
yeah, and
just
it's
pushed over some piles of dirt and like added some leaves and whatever we could just to get some nutrition and microbes in there, and we had our first season of growing, and then just
amazing.
added more seaweed and leaves and whatever.
We're pounding in our well this year, so we'll let everyone know how that goes. Hopefully, we'll hit water.
Oh, that's awesome. That's the thing about my brother's homestead is I told him, I said, you got it made. Like you're on an amazing well. Like
Nice.
all he needs is solar, and he would be off grid. And that's his next thing. He's got the animals, he's got the well, he's got
Yeah,
Wow.
hundreds of acres. And I said, you just need like a windmill and some solar, and you are way ahead of 99.9% of the population. You
Yeah.
know. So yeah, are you growing, Bianca? Do you have a garden, or are you looking into growing one? Like, what's your status on that? And I want to ask you too, Will, because I know I'm growing, and if I can do it, anybody can.
So actually, we lived on a 30-acre farm for
Wow.
since 2020. We just moved from the farm the end of last year. So I'm no longer on a farm, which is unfortunate.
Yeah,
But it was such an amazing experience. I think everyone should have a farm experience at least like one season in their lives. It teaches you so much, and I was very blessed to meet another woman who was passionate about sovereignty and freedom as much as I am. So we were looking for alternative ways of being once COVID had hit. And so she had all the knowledge. She was into permaculture. She had a property before we moved to the one we lived at of less than 1 acre, and she had over 300 edible and medicinal plants. I mean, I've
holy,
learned so much. It was truly an amazing experience, and I'm really glad that my daughter got to experience it. And she loves gardening. She loves being out. We live like kind of in a complex, so my daughter would like to petition our complex to get signatures to build a community garden. So we're in the process
amazing.
of
oh,
trying
that's
to get
great.
that working, and she's already started planting seeds that she plans on using to help assist people who don't have resources for good quality food. Really, really amazing child I have. So
Yeah.
right now we are looking for alternative ways to grow our food because we don't really have like property of our own. It's kind of like we share yards with everybody. And so we started designing our space and hoping to build some garden beds here soon that we can kind of like move as the season comes and goes. But I have my son's father, I'm in a co parenting relationship with my son's father. And we were over there yesterday for Mother's Day. And I was told that I could also garden at their place as they do have a bit of property. So I'm pretty excited because that, opens up our gardening potential so much more.
Wow, that's incredible. Like that's so good to hear. That's a good idea too. A lot of people have space. This was something I talked about with my co-host Jonathan on our other show, is that he was starting to talk to people that, maybe you can't garden for whatever reason, but a lot of people have extra land. And if you just went up and talked to them and said, "Listen, I'll do all the work, like I just need the land and I'll do all the work. Can I just grow here?" He was surprised that a lot of people are cool with that. Like they will let you start using their property to grow stuff and that, especially if you're sharing with what you're growing in that. So it's something to think about if you don't have an area to grow that. Maybe look around and see if there's somewhere you can. So that's cool that you got that and that your daughter wants to maybe make a community project out of it, which I think is really cool. If you could get the whole, like where you live, the whole community involved and maybe setting up gardens that everybody tends to, and that you're bringing community together, you're learning about food, you're learning about growing. It's a win-win-win. I love it.
Yeah, it truly is.
Wow, that's great to
Fantastic.
hear. What do you
That's
think, Will?
cool.
I know you're growing something.
I'm always
You're,
growing something, man. Yep. Gardening is definitely one of my passions. I was
I knew
blessed
it.
to be raised on a ranch, 7 acres, 7.5 acres, and my parents still live on that property, and hopefully it's in the talks to move onto the back portion of that property, which is great. But they still have it, and my daughter and I go there all the time. My parents garden. I'm where I'm at now. Um, I'm cornered to a vineyard, which is nice. So I have some land that's actually on my property that I have some garden beds set up and some felt bags and some vertical gardening going on. But gardening itself is such a great teacher in itself, because you can discover all the natural law principles in gardening. You could talk about the nutrition and sustenance and stability. You could talk about rights, natural rights in there, voluntary interaction. There's so much that can be learned from just gardening. And hey, what little kid doesn't like to play in the dirt and play with bugs? There's just so many lessons there, and I think gardening is a great teacher and a great curriculum. You can look at that as so. And there's also apprenticeships as well. I mean, I know in my area and some of the farmlands, some farmers do young kid apprenticeships where you go there. It's like a 6-week thing, and you get to learn about the animals and play with the animals and learn about farming and growing. And this is the kind of interaction and real world knowledge that we really need to see with our children, right? We need to experience with our children as well, because the government is controlling the food supply on many different levels, this dependency on the state, and we need to not make that the norm for our children.
Right. I agree with that 100%. That's the thing, is to break free of this system. And I think homesteading is a great way to do that. And gardening is a great teacher. I'm glad you brought that up, Will, because I've learned not what not to do in my gardening experience. I'm learning the hard way in a lot of ways, because I did garden. My mom had me in the garden at a young age, but then I got older and I kind of got away from that for a lot of years and had to come back to it when I got a house and I had where areas I could grow. So I'm the only person I think that ever had trouble growing a potato. I mean, I get teased constantly that I could never grow potatoes, and now I can. I don't know how I couldn't figure it out, but it took me a couple of years to get the hang of it, which sounds funny. I know people are probably going, you stick them in the dirt and they grow.
No,
I couldn't grow them.
hear ya.
I couldn't grow them. It just didn't work. And then one year I had it was actually a listener email me after I was talking about it on a show. I kind of went on a rant about how I can't grow potatoes. And yeah, they just emailed me and they gave me some pointers, and then it worked. But it was this learning process.
Great.
That's it. We're helping each other, learning from each other.
Yeah, we love the potatoes. They're great.
Oh, I love it.
You got the trivia method right in there too with gardening.
You absolutely do.
Yeah.
Well, maybe because you bring up the trivium. I know that there's going to be listeners that don't know what you mean by the trivium. Maybe you can break this down.
Yeah, the trivium method, it's the classical liberal arts, which has been eradicated from modern education. Liberal meaning to liberate the mind, not the modern connotation of liberal, the political wing. So this is the classical liberal arts. It's also the scientific method. It's the process of critical thinking. Trivium means the threefold path of truth discovery. So trivium, three-way path. And that's grammar, logic, rhetoric. Or if you want to, have a more digestible terminology, input, processing, and output. Knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. So you gather, for instance, let's use gardening. My daughter's like, Dad, let's grow, some carrots. Do you know how to grow carrots? No, Violet, I do not. Huge. That's such a great lesson for your kids to hear you say, I don't know. Let's go find out. Right. And then you have to first stage, you have to gather all the information that you can. Okay, let's go look up carrots. Let's see what the type of zone or environment that they thrive in. What's the spacing? What's the pH of the soil? All this kind of stuff. Where are we going to plant them? You gather all that data, and then you process that data, meaning that you understand the data. You check for inconsistencies. You see what goes together, and then after you have that understanding, then you can implement it and output it in behavior or your rhetoric. Okay, we gathered the information. We understand how we're going to plant these carrots. Now let's go do it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And that's the process of critical thinking. And that applies to any category in reality. So
they don't teach that. They don't teach that in school. Well, you just broke down. And I was never taught that way of breaking things down. That's for sure. And it makes so much sense. For sure. Because they want to control the available data. They want to control the information at the grammar, the first level. So when you try to process that information, you're completely polarized, right? You don't have the correct information. You just have what they have told you. And then how is that going to output in your behavior? You're going to take incorrect actions. Makes sense. It really does. That's why I was so glad you brought up the trivium and you could break it down, because I know people I talk to, if I bring up trivium, they've never heard that. Like they've never even heard that terminology or what it means, and they're really curious. It's the correct way of thinking, and that's what people have to relearn, I think, is this trivium method of bringing in information, which I think is so hard to do with social media and the influence of it and how we're getting bombarded with information. And that could go on any topic, whether it's parenting or any of the topic. Pick a topic where it's so influenced by social media that this is now more than ever, I would think that the trivium method of thinking is more needed because of how much information's out there, how many people are getting the incorrect information and they don't know this process of gathering and sorting through it. Really important.
Absolutely. Yeah. Using discernment. Not a lot of people know how to weed through the lies.
Mm-hmm. They believe things without researching it. So that's not good.
That's right. The trivium, what its aim is to cultivate a thorough understanding of language and thought and language. So you have a deeper engagement with any subject matter. That's what the trivium is, and that's what critical thinking, and it's also the scientific method. In which they're not teaching the young children, which makes a lot of sense why they're not teaching this, because, think of how powerful what Will just said, and
what we're talking about in critical thinking, that which isn't taught. I mean, that's probably what's lacking in a lot of people, adults too, is this critical thinking is what's not happening. And so this is powerful stuff. I mean, it explains a lot.
That's right. And the trivium, just a little bit of history, it comes from Plato and Aristotle. So we're not talking about, where does the classical liberal arts come from? We're talking, this is an ancient method of truth discovery.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah. Like, see, these are the conversations I love because they're powerful. And I hope people are really listening and learn more about the trivium. It's a game changer. It really is. I mean, I think about when I look at topics, I try to find, as like Will was saying, you try to get as much information, gather as what you can. And then, you have to process it. I always think of it as a computer for me because I know computers a little bit. So I always think like, okay, it's like Will said, you're gathering the information, you're processing it, and I think of output and what we're putting back out, which is another thing that's important too, which kind of ties right into conscious parenting is, what you're what they're going to put out, what you're teaching them is what they're going to be putting out in the future. That's important to realize. I mean, there's so much going on here.
Well, just to sorry to hog it up, but just to add on to that, for parents to educate themselves, really understand where the American, or really, I mean, it could be Canadian, just understand where the public education system comes from. The trivium method, the classical liberal arts, was removed from American public education during the industrialization era, right? So in the 19th, early 20th century. And once you understand the public education system, that it comes from the Prussia era and territories, then you know that it was created to make good workers, to make good slaves. Exactly, that's why they removed the trivium method.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, I told my mom that today when she was calling, worried about, sorry, Mom, if you're listening, but anyhow, she was worried, when is he going to be reading, and this and that, because she's programmed to think that Sebastian has to do something at a certain time. And I was telling her, do you know why the schools were created, Mom? The public schools, and I was telling her, good, obedient workers, good, obedient slaves, That's exactly what they want.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, these
and that's in their words too. That's in their words.
Exactly. They're telling us, and like these milestones for children. I always think to myself, and I think this with a lot of things is like when I think about this, when laws, like who makes laws up now, I'm like, who comes up with this? Like, I mean, these milestones, like a child should be reading by this age, they should be walking by this age, and blah, so forth, so forth. I'm like, who makes this up? Like, yeah, it's like who came up with this number that a child should be doing this by this age when they're all so individual and different? And we've all given great examples. Like I knew somebody that very similar, like wasn't, they weren't good at reading, but they eventually they started reading. Now they read books. Like, I mean, they were a little slower than the other kids, but now they love reading. They wanted to learn about, they wanted to read books, so they figured out reading. Like it's amazing. Like what you put your intent behind.
They're ready. Yep, they'll read when they're ready.
Yeah, when they get motivated.
That's the key, right? Like, like if you're motivated, you're going to figure it out. And that's the powerful thing that I think parents should realize is that, maybe they're just not ready yet to to do a certain thing.
Trust that they will know, they'll learn it.
Exactly.
And part of
this is why it's so important for it to be like child-based learning and led, because like my daughter picked up math and reading on her own. Like she picked it up she picked up math way before I was ready to introduce it. But then once she showed interest, it just kind of came easy for her. I mean, she still struggles in some areas, but I allow her to set the pace. And then my daughter didn't learn how to read until last year when she was 8. But now she reads like so well. And like, I didn't have to teach her that. She learned on her own when she was ready. And I never forced it upon her.
Good for
That's so sweet.
See, this is,
like Will was saying that they're geniuses. We just have to step out of the way and facilitate, support, care, love, and they are natural geniuses. Yeah, and the school dims their light and separates them from their souls, basically.
And lack confidence, right? Oh, you're not reading fast enough, Henry, or you're not doing as good as the other kids, or whatever they say.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I heard that. I heard a lot of that too growing up. I'm below. I actually got held back a year because I wasn't where they thought I should have been. But I mean, I just it really bothered me too when they held me back, because I was like, that, what does that even mean? Like, why am I being held back because I didn't meet somebody's expectations on a certain few subjects that I had no interest in?
Yep.
And that's what they do though. And then they centered me out. And then that was another part of bullying. Like, see, I mean, I can get into a whole tangent because I see this chain effect of when they did that to me. And then the kids, cruel kids can be, and then you got left back a year. And I mean, yeah. And then this is what
teachers are mean too,
absolutely.
They call you stupid, or whatever.
Yeah. And what's going on in the schooling systems now? Like, oh my God. I mean, that's the reason I wanted to have this, is because I'm trying to get people thinking outside the box.
Like Pink Floyd says, the dark sarcasm in the classroom. That is so true.
That's right.
Yeah, I love Pink Floyd, by the way. Great band. I'm glad you brought that up. But yeah, that's just amazing, guys. I want to thank you so much. I keep looking at the time. I'm like, I got 10 minutes left. I just looked at the time. I really couldn't believe it. I was like, oh my God, this flew by again. So I would love to eventually down the road have you all back for a part 2, because I think we're just scraping a lot of the surfaces of what we're covering. And that's what my goal was actually for this show, was to hopefully have a discussion where we got people thinking and questioning and knowing that hearing people that are doing it a different way. And that's why I want to bring you on to show people this, because you guys are doing this. And
appreciate
it. Grateful that you did, and appreciate what you do, what you all do.
Yeah, appreciate all your great work, all of you guys, and it's an honor to be talking with you tonight.
Absolutely, thank you so much. Yeah, it's incredible. And I'd love to have you back in the future for sure. And then we can get deeper into some maybe more pinpointed topics. But I think this was a great overview, like a good broad view for parents who are maybe questioning. Because I do talk to parents that they're really considering homeschooling, and that this seems to be the norm. Will maybe get your thoughts on this, and I can get everybody's thoughts, and that should wrap up the show. But it does seem, I'm seeing, like I was saying, people realizing that there is other ways to do it. And they seem to be coming around a little bit, because I talk to parents that are at least thinking about it. They're open to the idea.
Yeah, there's definitely an uptick of parents recognizing the issues in the world and wanting to take their power back, and they're valuing freedom, rights, and they're valuing and honoring their children above all, right? So there is an uptick in that, and having beautiful families like Byanca, Amy, John Paul on here. I mean, more parents that can come out and share their experience that value morality and nature and truth. That is inspiring for the other families that are trying to activate as well.
I agree. Yeah, this is so inspiring. I'm really was looking forward to the show, as I told you, and I'm so happy of how it's turned out. I think that we've really shown people, and people have heard that this can be done. There is a different way. And that was my total goal, was to show people that, it may not be easy. There's, like we said earlier, there's going to be sacrifices that may have to be made, but do you care enough about your children and to do this? And that's why I think parents have to start asking themselves, what are you willing to do to have a healthy child and to help your child grow the right way and get them out of this control system that they're in, the slave system. Absolutely. Like Amy was saying, that's what it is. I agree. That's what the whole schooling system is. So, and maybe we'll go to you, Amy and John Paul. I want you, please let people know about your website, what they can find there. I want to give you a few minutes to let people know, because I put a link in. I hope people go and check it out, because you got some great stuff there.
Appreciate that, brother. Yeah. I didn't mention, it's kind of that Luv-A-Lution amongst the individual and collective, that journey of higher consciousness towards self-love, right? We've always been taught to love things, but not ourselves. We can't love others without loving ourselves. We can't give what we don't have, right? And we have videos on there, and a Truth Warriors, Truth Speakers and Seekers page, about 80 true speakers and seekers like yourselves on there, and you can click on any of those. And
Luv-A-Lution.net. And
Luv-A-Lution.net.
Yeah, we were inspired to share what we know and what we've learned.
Yeah, once we were basically had a child, it really kicked in the conscious parenting of being responsible. And a last point I wanted to make about basically for parents that are on the fence, that you're going to know your child for most of their lives, so you don't want to give up that precious time, like Will was saying, to a stranger to teach your child, so you're going to be with them for 80 plus years hopefully, and they're just, when you send them to those schools, they just mold them into that cog in the machine, and then that's it.
And be brave parents out there.
It takes courage, definitely a lot of courage.
You can allow your children to teach you, and they mirror to you what you need to look at or what you're having difficulties with. And so being a mom has really fastened my awakening, and I'm grateful for that. And my sons teach me something new about myself every day.
That's incredible. I've said that so many times, like you can learn from children.
Yes.
Like they're I mean, like people have it in their mind. Yeah, like people have it in their mind, like, oh, they're so young, they don't know anything. You can't. They teach. They're great teachers.
Yeah, exactly. We have to get back to that inner child, and we teach that on about the Luv-A-Lution is getting to that inner child, doing the inner work, loving yourself truly, being your best friend, your father, your mother, because your mom and dad did the best they could, but we all have those abandonment issues. Absolutely. And we got to heal ourselves, love ourselves in order to move on from that and become conscious parents as well.
Absolutely. Love yourself. That's so important. And Byanca, do you want to add in here at the end where we still got 4 minutes, so we're good. So I want to give you the floor. If there's anybody, you want to have a website or anything, or a channel, a YouTube channel, anything you want to let people know?
Yes, I have a YouTube channel. It's B's, as in BsSacred Space. I talk a lot more on right now, talking more about kind of taking care of ourselves in all aspects, which will lead into a series all about inner work and healing our wounds and traumas. But I just want to say, if you truly care about your children and you really want the best for them, you will learn how to make learning and schooling work for you guys. It doesn't have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be super elaborate. Just slow down, take your time, get to know your children, get to know what their likes and interests are, and just follow that to start with. It's as hard as we want to make it, and it's as easy as we want to make it. There are a lot of resources out there for parents if you are curious in unschooling and homeschooling. I'm very fortunate that I live in a state that supports homeschooling like no other. Like, I've never experienced anything like I do, and I live in the state of Idaho, and it's a big, huge homeschooling community out here. There are co-ops out there, so yeah, you can do it. Like, it's really not as difficult as people like to make it. And thank you for having me on. Everybody was great. I loved a lot of the points that were brought up. This was truly an amazing panel to be a part of.
Thank you so much. Thank you all so much. And Will, this is encouraging. This is what I was hoping from this show, to give people examples that if you put your will behind it, your intention, and you care enough, that you can do you can do this. This can be done. And this is so powerful, I think. And yeah, your thoughts.
100%. I'm very blessed to be on this panel. Very inspiring, Byanca and Amy and John Paul, the Luv-A-Lution family, and for having us on, Rick. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And this is what it's about, right? Responsibility. We're raising the future. When more parents awaken themselves and educate themselves and raise the consciousness of themselves and their children, then we are going to see real change in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's so true. It's so true. And I made sure I put links to Byanca. I put a link to your YouTube channel in the chat room. I did it once again for Luv-A-Lution. Please, everybody, go check out Byanca's channel. Check out Will Keller. You can find him on YouTube. I think he's on all. You're on everywhere, aren't you, Will?
Yeah, willkeller.com. You can get to all my platforms.
Oh, yeah, that's right. willkeller.com. I'll leave a link for that. You can get to find all of Will's work. These are people doing incredible things and paving it forward and putting the message out there, doing great work. And it's been an honor to have you all on my show. I mean, I can't thank you enough. And I'm already looking forward to having you back in the future to continue this conversation. These are the conversations I think that need to happen. And what's the greatest way is showing an example and by example that this can be done. And I mean, like I was saying at the beginning, to bring it full circle, that I've talked to parents and they say, how can it even be done? There's two parents out of the house. How do we homeschool? How do we get it away from the system? And I think we've covered a lot of that it can be done. You know, we're talking to people today that are doing it, and every family's different. I get it, guys. And it's not an easy answer, I don't think, for everyone, but we're showing that it can be done. And so I want to thank everybody for tuning in once again this week. This was an incredible show. I was looking forward to this for such a long time. I'm glad I made it happen and everybody's joining us. And so please stick around. Another great host coming up right after this. And I'll be back Thursday. And don't forget, I'll also be back as usual every Monday, guys. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you all of my guests on the panel. You guys were incredible. And
Much
keep
love.
doing what you do.
Much love, everyone.
Thanks,
Take
y'all.
care, guys.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to Revolution Radio.